I'm Jeanette. I'm moderating today. I'm thinking we might want to get started. All right, our next topic is building public-private partnerships to close the digital divide. And that's with Jason Yoho from Lumen.
Thank you for having me here today. My name is Jason Yoho. I'm the Senior Vice President of Public Sector Product at Lumen Technologies. That means that I run the product and solution team that's responsible for innovation across our federal, state, local government business. That includes our Digital Enabler program. I'm really happy to be here this morning and share this program with you. It's a program, and it's about a year old at Lumen. I created the program from the ground up. It represents really a transition for Lumen's business in a number of ways. We have a newer CEO named Kate Johnson, who I'll talk about a little bit later. But Kate joined Lumen, and part of our transformation of our business is realizing that Lumen has an important and central role in many communities. We're a large company with tens of thousands of people. You often see us on the street in the form of Quantum Fiber is our consumer brand. And we really were focused on not just the financial return of our business, but enabling Lumen and the Lumen employees to participate in our local communities. And so digital inclusion, in a very real sense, embraces that, and it is central to what we're doing with the program. This is a funded program at Lumen, meaning we have dedicated resources, and those resources are focused on two things. They're focused on helping communities achieve their public policy objectives for their middle mile investments. And they're focused on enabling the community ecosystem that supports those investments via a Digital Enablers program, which is part of our digital inclusion program. Our goal is to use the public-private partnership model, or P3s, to create low risk for investment, deployment, and management frameworks at scale and are sustainable over the long term for these networks and deliver performance-based outcomes over the long term. I'm going to try and keep up here on 2 slide decks. So I want to talk a little bit real quickly just about Lumen's network itself and what we bring to the table. Lumen has an ultra-low latency national middle mile network with unmatched route diversity and scale. Now that sounds like maybe a marketing tagline, but it's really important in these public-private partnership, these digital inclusion discussions. Route diversity is one of the key things as we're trying to close the digital gap and help communities make investments where they're going to have the greatest impact. Having access to a bunch of different routes across a world-class high-speed network is maybe the central thing the communities are looking at when they're looking at making those investments. And it's really central to the relationships that we have with them as we're helping them plan and build strategies and then implement investments to bring high-speed internet access to the areas of our communities that are often underserved or unserved and desperately need those investments. So it's a lot more than just a marketing statement, although it does sound good too. This is the backbone of our value, of course. It allows customers then to focus on leveraging those middle mile investments into last mile investments, right? How do they bring the connectivity to their constituency and to their stakeholders in the home, in the business, in the hospital, in the education institution, whatever it might be. The second thing is it lets them focus on the outcomes of success. How to operate and maintain these networks is non-trivial. There's often requires an area of expertise that communities, of course, don't have. They're not networking experts. We are, and it allows them to focus on the model of success. And then it allows them to focus on how do they want to continue to invest in those networks to bring additional access to their agencies, departments, and other community stakeholders. A little bit just about the value of that network. What it means is not just where we have the network and the high speed that it brings to the business. It's really about what's built into that network, what capabilities exist based upon the investments, the technologies that Lumen has made to not just provide high-speed access, but to secure that network, to make sure that that network is highly flexible and can adjust as their needs adjust, to make sure that that network is very efficient so that they can hit the ground running and not worry about, is this thing going to deliver? Is it going to perform? Is it going to satisfy our requirements from this investment? All right, so that's enough of the kind of the business stuff. But those are critical, and we spend an awful lot of our time on those first few topics because it's where our partners need a lot of help. What we've learned as we've been engaging at the state and the municipal level, working on these projects, is that there's a real opportunity to come together, and many of you know this, and to work on defining the next generation of these investments, leveraging the public-private partnership model, the P3 model. We really see three common themes. Most investments in communities are making don't fall into any one of these buckets, but it's a blend of these three themes. Firstly, the OMC model. O&M, operation and maintenance, of course, is critical, non-trivial. Commercialization, the C here, is really one of the trickier areas where we have dedicated resources to sit down with our community partners and to look at what's possible and what's potential, and to build out robust economic models to show them how those investments are going to play out in the various OMC models over time. So the three things that we see is a big focus on operation, maintenance, and commercialization, of course. Understanding opportunities for shared investment. This is leveraging local investment resources, state and federal resources, and also the private sector. What role does private equity potentially play in putting together a long-term investment model that minimizes risk for all the players, but is viable over the long term? And then thirdly, of course, coming back to the network, it's not just about connectivity and getting access and understanding where route gaps exist, but it's putting flexibility on the table in terms of that network. Is there a potential for a swap, this route for that route, or sharing routes, leveraging investments that communities have already made and in investments that Lumen has already made, and sitting down truly and being a partner and saying, we're going to look forward from a strategic perspective, and we're going to determine where the opportunities to co-invest, using that term not in the literal sense, co-invest in the direction that these networks are going to go. And so this is an ongoing discussion. We spend a lot of time here, but when we do that, what we find is we're able to bring some really creative solutions to the table. Currently, Lumen is, of course, working with the state of California in the largest middle mile initiative in the country. We're really proud to be a part of that discussion and a part of that solution. California and all the partners have been tremendous partners to Lumen, and we're grateful for that. But at the other end of the scale, perhaps, is the work that we're doing with Link Oregon. So this project is focused on a rural community, and not all underserved and unserved communities are rural. In fact, just to jump back to California, many of the communities that we're focused on in the Middle Mile Initiative in California are in urban areas, but this is focused in rural areas. And we all know that Link Oregon is a REN. It's a great model. It adds a lot of value to the communities. Lumen put a public-private partnership in place with Link Oregon to serve the stakeholders of those communities and of that program. It helps the communities focus on driving outcomes. When we use the public-private partnership model to alleviate some of the cost burden, the operating burden for these types of investments. And so this has been a success. And we have an ongoing conversation with Link Oregon on how we can expand the success that we're having with them. This is Kate Johnson, our new CEO. I don't know if anyone follows Kate. She's got a great social media following. She's really compelling. She shows up in a really sincere way. And Lumen's business is seeing the return of Kate's leadership across our business in a whole bunch of ways. But so are our partners and our customers. And so when we built the Digital Enabler program, it was more than just about making investments in a network and learning how to use that network. It was equally about engaging communities. And so we have a very deliberate, structured investment with dedicated people who, that's Zeidel Buchanan down there in the left-hand corner with the Seahawks. This is an event we did at the Seahawks Stadium up in Seattle. I think we had 100 volunteers, about half of them from the local area, about half of them from Lumen employees who worked in the Pacific Northwest, to come out and work for a day together in a volunteer event, helping out, solving food needs, not solving, we helping fill the gap from a food needs standpoint with local communities by building out some bags. And Kate came in and she worked all day with us. She's committed to this program. She's asked us to show up in a way with this program where we're not just sitting down early, helping customers and partners solve real problems, but we're doing that in a way that engages Lumen's employees, and we're doing that in a way that engages a broader partnership ecosystem. And that ecosystem consists of corporate partnerships. It consists of technology partnerships. It consists of tribal nation relationships. And we have many wonderful relationships with tribal nations. And it consists of other community-based organizations across the country who are all participating in the broader ecosystem of these middle mile initiatives and digital inclusion investments that are being created to drive outcomes. And so those usually take the form of things like workforce, education, volunteer activities, as I mentioned, school technology support, technology for teachers. These types of programs are all the types of things that when we look at a digital inclusion investment, we look at a middle mile investment with our community partners, we look at how to leverage the entire ecosystem and make them a part of that investment in a real direct way, not just in volunteer events, but ways for them to participate in education and bring programming to those communities that they desperately need to enable education, business, healthcare, participation in society and civic society. So yes, Lumen, I would encourage anybody to think about Lumen along these lines. These are really compelling reasons, which I've talked through a little bit. The other thing that I would add is many of our customers and partners that are working with Lumen, what they've learned in those conversations is not just how we can help them reduce risk and hit the ground running, and how we can, leverage their investments in a strategic way to take advantage of Lumen's networks and where we're going with them, but really about how we can be creative as we're looking at these challenges and we're looking at these programs. Kate has delivered a mandate to Lumen, and that mandate is find ways to say yes to doing these things. Find ways to say yes to the state of California on how they're thinking about a very complex economic model and how they're going to sustain that over a 20 or 30-year period and allow it to fund the operation and the maintenance of that, of the network here in California over that period of time. How they're going to commercialize it and bring that network to other constituents, not just from a last mile perspective, but from an agency, a department, and a community standpoint. And so that's the commitment that our partners are seeing, and it's transforming our relationships. It's transforming their vision for what they want to accomplish with these investments. And we're seeing really a profound, meaningful conversation occurring around how we can bring broadband access and internet access to portions of our communities that need it the most. This is my team. Obviously, that's Kate there on top. This is the core team. All in, we've got over 100 people working on this. These are the folks that are making things happen on a daily basis. Send Kate an email if you have a question. Send me an email. You can reach out to any of the people here on this page. We are deeply engaged in communities across the country every day. And we're carrying this conversation in a lot of different ways. We'll show up however you might need us to. So please reach out. And look for Kate on social media, as I mentioned. I think that's it. I thought, oh, here's our website. That's what I wanted to show on this website, on this page. So digital inclusion at Lumen, check it out. There's some case studies up there. So really interesting information. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you. That's all I have. Any questions from anyone? Is there anyone from Lumen in the room right now? Yeah, hi guys. I can only see hands. No, I can see your face because you're up front. Hi. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Legislature actually, and thanks for the presentation. I saw that. I saw that you're doing several different models of public-private partnerships in terms of the operation, the maintenance, the joint builds, and the leasing. Obviously, here in California, we're using all three of those methods to deliver our middle mile project. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more about what you've seen work well in other states with each of those three different models.
Yeah, it's a good question. So the question is around kind of what are the best practices that are where we're seeing the most success from a model standpoint around public-private partnerships. The first thing I'll say is public-private partnerships are not new, right? The concepts, it's widely used in various industries, and it's widely used around the globe in a variety of different ways. It is new from a middle mile perspective. So there's not a huge history or a huge body of information that we can all collectively go look at and say, okay, what's the latest and greatest, or what are the core best practices. However, we can pull from other industries, and we can avoid pitfalls. I think one of the biggest things, and this is not specific to California, so maybe more of a general response to your question, is to make sure that we're getting the levers in each of those buckets, on the OMC pieces correctly. It costs money to obviously build these networks. It costs money to maintain them. Many communities would prefer that doesn't become a never-ending investment for them to operate and maintain these networks. So I would say that's the first lesson that we've learned from other industries, is to apply the commercial side of it, and to understand, is there an opportunity with these investments, following the legislative requirements or the regulatory requirements of the municipality or the state, for those investments to drive a return. One of the best ways to do that is to bring in a partner like Lumen, or one of the partnerships that we bring together from a commercialization standpoint to do that, so that commercialization effort is not an effort that the state or the municipality is doing on their own. Just like running a network, commercializing a network is something that most state and local agencies don't have the expertise to do. And of course, Lumen is one of the handful of companies that knows how to do this at scale and knows how to do it successfully. And so digging in and understanding the various inputs to commercialization, where the boundaries exist from a legal and regulatory standpoint. These are the keys that we're finding to setting up a sustainable, self-funding, viable from a commercial standpoint, operating structure for these things going forward. But it varies significantly from location to location, from state to state or municipality to municipality, because there's an awful lot of regulation. There's an awful lot of, law that exists around what can and cannot be done in various places, which is why, if I can turn it back, you'll see Melissa Mann here is one of the core team members, and she heads up regulatory affairs, government affairs for Lumen. And so she has a seat from day one when we engage with customers. And Melissa knows the state of California super well. We all do. We're all engaged with the state on a daily basis. That's what we can bring to the table. Someone who understands, she has a whole team. We have dedicated people on her team to this program who can help us navigate that regulatory environment, because that's usually the thing that's constraining the commercialization side of things the most. So I would say that's the number one thing that we've learned. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, you got one. Okay.
So I'm Steve Corville.
Took a left. I thought you were taking a right.
I'm Steve Corville. I lead Link Oregon, so I'm from up north of the California border.
Mm-hmm.
One interest for me is the sustainability of these efforts. You alluded to it around the advantages of P3s.
Yeah.
Obviously, an unprecedented amount of one-time money. What strategies would you have for groups, whether it's on the infrastructure side or the digital equity side, for sustainability?
So can you just tell me a little bit more? By sustainability, you mean what?
Total cost of ownership success. You've gotten an incredible grant, state of California, $4 billion for middle mile. It has to consider OpEx, O&M, fiber patrol, all that. What strategies do you recommend that public entities and nonprofits have for thinking about the sustainability of their long-term efforts?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so the questions around, if I can rephrase it, I think what you're asking is, the questions around is what have we learned about bringing different partners and different models to the table to build out successful long-term financial and economic structures for these investments. It's directly related to the first question. So number one is the commercialization piece, we think is key. It's not always an option. Sometimes that's not on the table. One of the other things that we've learned is there's a real demand, a real interest, if we want to put it that way, in the private sector to participate in these projects, right? So this is, institutional money, private equity, various forms that are aligned with the long-term horizons of these projects, right? And I think that's one of the keys is make sure that you're bringing money to the table that has an investment return or investment horizon that it's aligned with the horizon of the project. And I don't want to call out other projects across the U.S. It was a learning curve, right? Everyone was trying to figure this out when the federal structural funding opportunities came down. But I would say that that's probably the single biggest red flag that we learned from those first generation ones is that if the money going in, if the return on that money, when that money needs to be paid back, is not aligned with when the term of that project or that investment, that's a structural misalignment that it's hard to creatively solve for once you're backed into the corner. So I'd say that's the number one thing. Make sure the financial partners that are coming to the table have a horizon that aligns.
Actually, I'd like to share a story.
Okay.
Sylvie Cosgrove, Stanford University, seating board chair.
Oh, hi.
Hi. So many years ago, I was part of a behavioral healthcare organization, and I had the opportunity to travel to parts that were not California. Virginia, Pennsylvania. And I visited several institutions as we were deploying new telephony and seeing young people who were addicted to opioids and wondering, how did they get here? And as we were working the campus, they would come up to us and ask us, how do we get this opportunity? How do we get engaged? And I would ask them, how did you get here? And a lot of it was because they didn't have the digital opportunity. They didn't have the network, the infrastructure, et cetera, that gave them the opportunities I think we take for granted here in most parts of California.
Right.
And even in California, there are areas like this. And if you think, as I think about your operations and maintenance challenges, because I hear this a lot, there's no money. What do we do with it once we get it here? We don't have people, we don't have funding, but have we thought about using it as an opportunity for digital learning, offering training for people there as part of that, as part of the digital inclusion, giving opportunities and training people on how to do this. So it's kind of, teach them to fish and they can, feed themselves forever. I'm wondering if this is part of something that you're thinking about. And it's something that I would be interested in partnering with you on.
Yeah, Sophie, we'd love to partner with you on that. I'll grab you after I'm done here, and I can't see the clock. So if I'm getting close, someone needs to let me know. But thank you for the question. So 2 minutes, thank you. There's many versions of that story that I've heard as I've gone around the country. The circumstances, the situations vary, right? Tremendously. But it's a great question, which is, when there's a digital gap, a digital divide, and it's not just young people, but, talking specifically about young people, when they don't have access, it seems almost like it almost seems like a simplistic statement to say when they don't have access to the internet, because to your point, we all feel like we kind of have that all the time, but a lot of people don't. They don't have an opportunity to better themselves. They don't have an opportunity to get access to resources, to education, to all the things that, make our society function. And it can lead to very, very disastrous and tragic outcomes. And that's a reality that communities across the country are facing. And I see it all the time when we go out and we have these conversations. Zeidel's mission, who's in the bottom left there, as she's building out the digital enablers program, Sophie, is to try and address that as much as possible in a structural way, so that we're engaging in a structured way from a Lumen perspective, programmatically, to bring resources to the table. So one of the programs, it's almost like a curriculum. I use that word very loosely, especially since you're from Stanford, but it's an education program to help people understand not just how to get on the internet. A lot of people know how to do that, but to give them access to what that investment means to their community. How is it helping small businesses? How is it helping their local education institution? But also direct curriculum around, what is technology? And so there are several parts to this program. We're at the early stages, by the way, so it's a great time to engage. I think Zeidel joined my team at the end of last year, and she's a rocket ship. So we're new. She is amazing and moves mountains. And we've got programs going on across the country. We are heavily invested in California, not just because of Middle Mile. We've got a big presence here, and we've got a lot of relationships. But the key is to get community organizations involved. They're the real experts, as you know, in providing information to those communities. They have a vested interest. They're trusted. They have standing relationships. And so our program, what we're trying to do is map it to the local community organizations, find both direct and indirect ways to support them, either programmatically and or from a funding potential standpoint, maybe as part of that OMC model, where that OMC model is providing needed resources in a structured way. So we'd love to engage with you in that conversation. And I'm guessing I'm at time. I see a red zero. Thank you for the opportunity. This is really fun. Thanks for the questions.